Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Carlo Calderon. I'm the Wildlife Program Coordinator here at Los Padres Forest Watch. We're very excited for this joint collaborative event between Los Padres Forest Watch and Project Coyote. And in tonight's webinar, Understanding Our Coyote Neighbors, Keli Hendricks, Ranching with Wildlife Coordinator at Project Coyote, will share some, practical expertise on coexisting with these, very misunderstood creatures, and also some of Project Coyote's amazing work that they're doing to protect coyotes and also protecting wild carnivores throughout our country. So, for those that are new to Los Padres Forest Watch, so we are a nonprofit organization committed to protecting wildlife, wilderness, water, and sustainable access throughout the Los Padres National Forest and the Carrizo Plain National Monument, achieving this through education, advocacy, and when necessary, legal action for the benefit of our communities, the climate, and future generations. For those not super familiar with the Los Padres National Forest, it's humongous. Sitting at 1.75 million acres. It's bigger than even some of our smaller U.S. states. It spans across 220 miles, um, going from Santa Clarita down in Los Angeles County all the way up to Monterey County. It's also a biodiversity hotspot with some very iconic habitats and land features, including chaparral, which makes up actually a majority of the national forest in terms of habitat, oak woodland, and of course also our beloved mixed conifer forest. So in terms of threats, what sort of threats does Forest Watch protect the Los Padres National Forest against? Some of those, could include things like opening up our public lands to additional drilling and fracking for oils and minerals, putting our national forests at risk. And, sometimes extensive logging and vegetation clearing projects that could permanently alter our forest ecosystems. A huge part of our work, of course, includes advocacy to protect our public lands from those threats. And of course, education and community outreach are a huge pillar of our work, as people need to know what is at stake and worth protecting when it comes to their public lands. Lastly, tonight's webinar is part of our Room to Roam program, a relatively new program here at Los Padres Forest Watch that focuses on providing outreach and education on human-wildlife coexistence to the public, surveying and documenting existing and potential wildlife crossings. We collect and analyze roadkill data through citizen science projects, and we protect and restore critical wildlife corridors. So with that being said, I will now turn it over to Kelly, who will give us an amazing presentation on coyote coexistence. Take it away, Kelly.
Thank you, Carlos. I've been in California for 64 years and I didn't even realize how big the Padre Forest is. That's amazing. Let's see. Did that work?
Um,
It
no,
didn't, did it? Okay,
no.
let me try that again. I don't know. Oh, I see what I did, I think. Why is it not letting me? You know what it's not letting me do all of a sudden? Is find my desktop on the when I go to share. I wonder
Oh,
why. What would that? Why would that be?
if you have it open just anywhere, you just go to share screen.
Oh, go back. Let me.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I get? Oh, I have to share so I can go back to stop sharing. Okay, share setting. Should I just try it again?
Yes.
Okay. No, it's not showing my desktop where my shows mailboxes, Safari, desktop one. Oh, so it's showing you, but not the rest of my desktop. Why would that be?
If you go to your presentation and just have it open, and then when you
Okay.
share screen, it should be one of your.
Okay, let me do this. Let me stop sharing. Go to, oh, maybe I need to click. This is probably what it is. I screwed up. Okay. That doesn't matter how many times we practice before we do this. Something always comes. Oh,
It's
wait,
just
I can't do that. It's
deciding
the
for us.
nature of technology. Okay, let me try this again now. There it is. Crisis averted. Okay.
All right, awesome.
There, how's that look? Can you see,
It looks. There we go. Okay, perfect.
can you see it? Oh, okay,
Yes.
cool. All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry about the glitch. As Carlos said, my name's Keli Hendricks, and I'm the Ranching with Wildlife Coordinator for Project Coyote. For those of you that don't know Project Coyote, we're a national nonprofit. We're based in Marin County, but we work on issues across the country, and we promote compassionate coexistence between humans and wildlife using education, science, and advocacy. And although coyotes are our flagship species, we advocate for all native carnivores. So, just a tiny bit about me. My husband and I are predator friendly ranchers. We live on a cattle ranch, and my husband has managed the cow calf operation here for 30 years. And every year we raise thousands of calves over these years alongside all kinds of predators without the use of any lethal controls. And I'm a longtime volunteer with Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue, where I foster orphan wildlife, dozens of orphan babies every year for release back into the wild. And I'm vice president of a dog rescue in Sonoma County called Little Trooper Ranch. And we rescue and rehabilitate and rehome small dogs. And finally, I'm a commissioner on the Sonoma County Fish and Wildlife Commission. And I do all this work on a volunteer basis because I'm just passionate about humans and wildlife coexisting. And I feel like all this background makes me really good at this. So that's why I do it. So, one of the coolest things about coyotes, I feel like, is their family life. Unlike a lot of wildlife species, coyotes have really, really complex social structures. It's a lot like humans. And I kind of find that fascinating. And within the coyote family, which is packs are just families, and within that family, only the mom and the dad, what people refer to as the alpha male and female, only they will breed. And all the other pack members will remain behaviorally sterile as long as they're a member of that pack. So coyote packs are territorial, meaning they won't tolerate other coyotes in their territories. So that makes having a stable coyote pack a really kind of a nice thing to have. It keeps other coyotes out of the area, and it keeps and coyotes will not overpopulate an area. You might see a lot of them at one time based on what time of year it is and how many pups they have before they disperse, but they won't overpopulate an area because they just won't tolerate unrelated coyotes in their territories. So one of the coolest things about coyotes is they mate for life and they're monogamous, and they're one of only 5% of mammals that are so. So that's kind of a cool thing. And all the members help raise the pups, including the father and the older siblings. So they have super strong family bonds. So sometimes people, when they come into conflict with coyotes, they'll think, well, why can't we just kill them? Uh, and won't that help? But coyotes respond to indiscriminate killing methods in kind of a unique fashion, which is why, even though we kill a coyote every minute in the United States, why we haven't managed to lower their numbers. In fact, it's only allowed their populations to expand to areas they weren't before. So, and this chart here will kind of explain this phenomenon. So, when you have a stable coyote pack, like it's shown there on the left, if you expose that pack to killing, and you kill one of the alpha pair, what happens is that'll allow all the younger coyotes to breed and to have they all can breed, and they can breed at younger ages and have larger litters in which more pups survive. So even though when you institute lethal controls, it might temporarily lower the number of coyotes, they'll rebound to even higher numbers, which is why we have a saying in the ranching community that if you kill one coyote, two will show up for its funeral, and that's based on this phenomenon. So, what do coyotes eat? And the short answer is they eat kind of everything. But the longer answer is they're omnivores. And but rodents are far and away their favorite food. There's a really long-running coyote study out of Cook County in Illinois, and they've collared hundreds of coyotes. And they've done diet studies on them, and they've determined that less than 3% of these coyotes had any signs of domestic pets in their diet. So uh, far and away, they prefer rodents when possible. They're scavengers, and although pets are rarely consumed, they are opportunistic. So if they find something, whether it's human sources of food or a small unattended pet, it could become a food source. So a big issue in that study I told you about in Cook County, one of the things they discovered was anytime a coyote got into conflict with people or pets, could always be traced back to a coyote that was being fed by humans, either intentionally or unintentionally. So feeding wildlife is a huge issue. In fact, we say that a fed coyote is a dead coyote because what tends to happen is, as we know, they can lose their natural fear of humans, and that can lead to bites and other problems. So there are people that intentionally feed coyotes, as crazy as it sounds, like this gentleman here on the right. And there's also ways we unintentionally feed them through feral cat feeding stations, bird feeders. They'll eat the seed itself underneath the bird feeders, but also the bird feeders are huge rodent attractants. So that'll also obviously draw coyotes in. Pet food that's left out at night is a big source of food. Trash and compost that's not properly stored. Fallen fruit from trees can draw in coyotes and rodents, and ponds and coops and backyard chicken coops. So if can draw in coyotes. If you have ponds or outdoor chicken coops, one of the things, it's beyond the scope of this presentation. This is a relatively short presentation, but you can go to our website at projectcoyote.org and to our resource page, and you can download a brochure that I wrote called Ranching with Wildlife. And in that brochure, it has great ideas for keeping your coops and livestock safe, whether you're a commercial or a hobby rancher, and ponds. So, or you could just email me at my email address is in this presentation, the very first slide. So, or you can contact Project Coyote and I'll get back to you. So feeding wildlife, you want to not do that. You want to keep those sources of food out of your yard, and that will help keep wildlife away. So one of the areas of miscommunications with coyotes that people don't really understand or misjudge coyotes about is their vocalizations. So I often hear people say, I know the coyotes are overpopulating because I hear them and there's dozens of them. But that's just a trick they can play with their voice. It's called the Bow-Just effect. And it can make a couple of coyotes sound like a large pack. And they vocalize to locate and greet family members. So even though it sounds super ominous when you hear them vocalizing, it's really joyous time when they're meeting up on each other. Because even though they're pack animals, they spend the majority of their day apart. So they do it to join up at night. And then they find each other and they're super happy. Sounds like they're killing something, but they're not. They vocalize for territorial marker. They vocalize to signal distress. That's usually a bark. But their vocalizations are not related to hunting. It wouldn't even really make sense for a predator to vocalize when it kills something, because that just would draw in other predators. So this slide is, I got a short video that it's not a very good quality video, but you'll hear the vocalizations and you can see the behaviors behind it to give you an idea. I hope when I shared the screen that I clicked the box that will allow Carlos, let me know if you don't hear anything.
Mm, would do. Oh.
So you can see it's actually very joyous sounding, even though it sounds absolutely, very, very scary. So another thing humans aren't very good at for as people is risk perception. We tend to overestimate things that aren't dangerous to us and underestimate the ones that are. So like we'll worry about getting eaten by a shark, but not necessarily so much about heart disease and things like that. So in order to get an idea of, if coyotes are dangerous, let's look, looking at the statistics is a good place to start. So in all of North America, coyotes bite on average in a year, and that's all of North America, about 20 people. And that's including scratches too. And most of those are very superficial. And by comparison, our man's best friend bites, and just in the United States, dogs bite 4.5 million people a year. And 1,000 people a year in the United States go, or 1,000 people a day, I'm sorry, in the United States go to emergency rooms for dog bites. I don't tell you this because I want you to be scared of dogs. It's just a good comparison because we don't think of dogs as necessarily dangerous. And obviously the statistics show that, by that means coyotes are not dangerous at all. And vets, what about how dangerous they are to our pets? Well, vets report that the most common injuries that their patients are admitted by are ingestion of foreign bodies, being hit by cars. About 6 million pets a year are hit by cars, dog fight wounds and cat fight wounds. So statistically, your dog or your small pet is more likely to get injured by another domestic pet than a coyote. So hazing is just scaring coyotes. So this is something we would do if if a coyote approaches you, your pet, your home, or your yard. So if you're feeling uncomfortable and a coyote is just getting too close and you're not comfortable and you don't want it around, what we recommend is doing something called hazing, which is just scaring it. And you do that just by acting big, bad, and loud. It's just an acting job. That's all you have to do. Because as scary as coyotes might be to some people, the truth is I've handled a lot of coyotes, both captive coyotes and wild coyotes. I've dealt with them hands-on for a lot of reasons. And they're really big chickens, huge chickens. So hazing them is really not difficult, although in urban areas, they can get much stickier than they do, let's say, with the coyotes I deal with out here on the ranch that aren't used to people and loud noises and everything. They're fairly easy to scare away. Whereas in urban areas, they have to be able to be used to people and loud noises and things like that in order to survive, but they can still be hazed. So the way we haze is acting big, bad, and loud. That might mean raising your hands over your head, yelling, hey, 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 slapping your legs. The trick is to look the coyote directly in the eyes so it knows you're targeting it, and then scare it away. What will usually happen is the coyote will run off a little ways and it'll stop and turn around. And then people tell me, I tried to haze, but it just didn't work. Well, you have to continue that hazing and up the ante if it's still not going by throwing something, raising your hands, blowing, whatever. If you have a plastic bag with you, you can wave it, something that might scare them until they run away all the way away. And you don't want to haze if coyotes might be protecting their pups. That means if it's any time between now and early summer, if a coyote has small pups it might be protecting and it's acting really sticky or maybe growling and not moving or something, then maybe just slowly put your dog on a leash, pick up a small pet, and back out of the area. One thing you never want to do, and this is really important to teach kids too, is to never run from wildlife or a dog. Because even though most animals are never going to plan to attack, if you run, two things happen. One is you can ignite the prey drive of the animal you're scared of. And the second thing is you're not going to outrun any wild animal or a dog. So better to never do that. If you have to leave a coyote, it's best to just slowly back out of the area. And don't haze if coyotes are just being coyotes. If they're just out in a field hunting rodents, leave it alone. And don't, obviously, if they're sick or injured, you don't want to haze them. So avoiding conflicts on walks. Leashes is the number one way to avoid conflicts with coyotes when you're on a walk. They almost never attack a dog on a leash. I've heard reports that it's happened, and I'm sure at some point it has happened to somebody, but it's very, very rare. So that's my first bit of advice, is just to keep your dogs on a leash. If you're really worried about coyotes and you want to ensure that you don't see them, you can practice avoidance. That's just, most wildlife gets most active around dusk through dawn. So if you walk outside of those hours, you're less likely, even with the as less likely as you are to see coyotes, is even more unlikely if you walk during those times. You can use light up collars and bells on your dog. Coyotes are neophobic. That just means they're scared of new things. So if they see a dog running around that's clinking and it's lighting up and flashing, they're very unlikely to attack. And it also helps protect you from motor vehicle strike. So that's always a good idea to have that. Carry a deterrent like the storm whistle that's shown here. You can buy them on Amazon, and they're made to work in high winds and rain and things like that. You can just put it on a lanyard around your neck, and you can blow that if a coyote is, you need to haze a coyote. Can also be helpful if you fall and get hurt, or another human's attacking you, something like that. It can be handy to have. And I encourage people to treat small pets like toddlers. That means whenever you're outside with them, they're supervised. They're in hand. They're not running out far away from you. Even if they're in your yard, you keep an eye on them. And haze if necessary. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to keep your yard safe for your pets and wildlife. And the great thing is nowadays we have a lot of great products. It used to be kind of difficult to enforce our yards, but now it's pretty easy. So the first thing we want to do is to remove the attractants, right? Like wild animals generally only want to go places where there's food, water, or shelter. So if you remove all those things like we talked about, like the seed under bird feeders, not leaving pet food out at night, have properly secured garbage, pick up fallen fruit from trees, you're less likely to have rodents, and you're less likely to have things like coyotes and raccoons and all the other kind of wildlife. So one of the great products that they have now is called coyote rollers. So if you have, let's say, a 5-foot fence that's in good repair, you can just put coyote rollers on top, and that will not only keep wildlife out of your yard, it keeps pets in the yard. So, and it does that because when pets jump over a fence, they don't jump all the way over. Generally, they touch the top of the fence with their paws, and it just rolls them right back off. So, and then there's a product called Dig Defense, which back in the day, if we wanted to keep animals from digging in or out of a yard, we had to trench all the way around the fence line and bury hardware cloth. But now they have this product, Dig Defense, and you just hammer these sections into the ground all around your fence line, and boom, you're done. And catios, if you want your cat to have outdoor access, the predator-proof enclosures called catios are an amazing option. You can make them as humble or as extravagant as you like, as shown in this picture. It's a pretty humble one. So they don't have to cost $1 million, but they're a really, really nice option to keep your cat safe. And of course, if you see coyotes entering your yard, you can haze if necessary. So this is a short video showing how that coyote rollers work. Now this one isn't the coyote roller brand. This one's some brand in Australia, but it's the same product. So just shows you how it works. So you get the idea. So the takeaways that I want everybody to think about is leashes. You keep your small pets on leashes when you're in areas with wildlife. Keep both the wildlife safe and your pets safe. And to supervise small pets and kids, as we should anyways. Secure your yards, don't feed wildlife, and haze if necessary. And if you still have issues or questions, you can always contact us at projectcoyote.org. And finally, I always like to finish my presentations with a couple of videos of just showing different coyote behaviors. So this was in British Columbia on a cop cam in the middle of the night somewhere. And this one, you guys might have seen this one already. This one went really viral. This was from Peninsula Open Space Trust, and they put a trail cam at a wildlife crossing culvert, and this is what they captured. So, so yeah, I'm happy to take some questions if we have some.
Awesome. So, like Kelly mentioned, now's the time for Q&As. I'll start reading some of the ones that got submitted under the Q&A. I see some that got submitted in the chat, so no need to double type. I'll get to those as well. In the meantime, while I'm going through the first bit of questions, last call right now for submitting questions. Um, Callie, somebody asked you made reference earlier about coyotes being attracted to ponds on properties or in backyards. Is it the pond
Mm.
itself that's attracting the coyotes, or for natural ponds and like natural landscapes, would you say it's like maybe fish that could be on a pond?
I think initially their attraction would be just as a water source, but then if they start being able to realize they can hunt something in there, that would even make it a huge, a bigger attraction for them and draw them in even more. But I think the initial reason they would visit a site with a water source like that is just for the water. So if you have, say, a koi pond, one of the important things to do is always make sure you provide hides for the fish. They sell them online, but it's basically like little tunnels where the fish can hide. Vegetation is a nice thing to have so the fish can kind of hide. And also sometimes grates on top. are a good option. But I'll tell you, if you get one weasel in around a pond, it can decimate a whole pond. Those little weasels are the greatest little animals, but they are stone cold killers, and they can get through little tiny. Like if you put a grate on top, make sure it's a grate that with really small entrance, that's really tight. What do you call it? It doesn't have big separation on it because
Mhm.
something like a weasel will just get right in there.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, and then, oh, this is a good question. So somebody was asking more so for rural communities, what are some ways in which we can help overcome the negative stigmas coyotes face in these rural settings?
Well, you know what works best, honest to God. I've been doing this work for, I don't know, like 15 years. And um, what helps more is just word of mouth, like more than all the work that, I mean, we do a tons of work, but as far as people's public opinions go and your neighbors and things like that is just word of mouth, talking to the people, sharing things on Nextdoor about the truth about coyotes as opposed to a lot of the myths you see that people write about on Facebook, things like that. Coyotes really could use a lot of good PR agents. And sometimes um, when it's coming from someone like myself or someone at Project Coyote, they think, oh, you just want to protect the coyotes. But when it's coming from a neighbor, sometimes they give that a little more weight sometimes. So I think that's a super effective way. And I always say with working with ranchers, if you can get one rancher that's respected in the community on board, it'll be like cattle. All the other ranchers will follow them in. So that's what I recommend. It makes a huge difference. So your voice, or if you are a positive voice for coyotes, it makes a massive difference.
Right. No, that makes sense. And that actually feeds perfectly into somebody mentioned if you have any advice on how to convince that person's homeowner association from hiring a
Oh,
trapper to kill coyotes
oh,
in the neighborhood. So this person lives near wetlands where there's, different kinds of neighbors or, feed birds, feed deer, and that sort of like, stimulates coyote activity and sort of like the HOA's
yeah.
feedback is always to hire a trapper.
Yeah. Well, like I said in that slide about why killing doesn't work, if someone could take that information and we have it in all of our on our resource page at Project Coyote, and you can speak to me again, I'm happy to write it in such a way that they can just repeat it to the board. However you want to deliver that message, we're happy to help. HOA boards are, has notoriously can be difficult to deal with. But if trapping was a solution, it'd be much harder to have to convince them. But we have plenty of evidence that it's only going to create more problems. So, and we're happy to supply that to Evidence Forum. If they just contact us at Project Coyote or go to our resource page, you can download a ton of stuff, signage, brochures, all kinds of stuff that with a lot of evidence on why killing. And we've worked with plenty of communities. We have a um, you know, coexistence community program that, and all our resources that we've gone down this route before and have worked with many communities and now have them using non-lethal tools only, which are more effective. They work proactively before there's problems. There's just so many advantages. So yeah, so if you need help, please reach out to us.
Awesome. And then I will provide for that person I will provide follow up with Kelly's email address.
Yeah.
And then somebody also mentioned that they feed wild birds and if that bothers coyotes. I believe you mentioned something specifically more about like bird feeders in this regard.
Yeah. No, the feeding the birds themselves doesn't bother coyotes. It's only that underneath bird feeders, if you leave that seed overnight, you're going to have a lot of rodents. And if you have a lot of rodents, you're going to have coyotes or other kind of wildlife. So it's not the act of feeding birds. And birds, when I say don't feed any wildlife because it leads to conflicts, obviously birds are the one the one animals that we do kind of feed, and there's not laws against it and all that other stuff like with the other wildlife. But the only problem that it can cause as far as coyotes go and other wildlife is with the bird seed under the thing, it can draw in a lot of rodents. And the seed itself obviously is an attractant to some wildlife itself too. So if you're worried, if you really don't want that, those problems, you can just clean up the seed under the feeders before nightfall.
Yeah, some good advice. And then somebody was wondering whether coyotes are able to catch and feed on ground crows specifically, because I know you mentioned a lot, you talked a lot about rodents, but what about
Yeah,
squirrels?
yeah. I believe me, I'm a expert on ground squirrels too. So you're good. You hit the right person with this question. I used to do all the ground squirrel rehab for most of the few counties around me because they're not the most popular species and they're difficult to rehab for several reasons. Their enclosures are difficult that you they're big diggers, as we all know, but they're amazing, amazing animals. And one of the things they need a new PR person too, because ground squirrels are really amazing. They can keep pastures more drought resistant from their burrowing, helps water get down into the soil. They spread seeds that can germinate pastures. They keep pastures way healthier. We love them here. And I know they can be pests. People find their holes unsightly. We have livestock. They don't break their legs in them like everybody thinks. It's perfectly fine. They do nothing but keep the pastures healthier. But as we know, they can reproduce pretty quickly. So they need their natural predators around as well. Yes, coyotes do predate on them. I find here that more than even coyotes, that the red tails and our big, they're probably their biggest natural predator is the golden eagle. In fact, when they do golden eagle surveys to find out populations, they look for ground squirrel colonies because that's the major food source of golden eagles is ground squirrels, California ground squirrels. And so we need those ground squirrels, healthy ground squirrel populations to keep any golden eagles around.
Awesome. And then, this could probably be its own webinar, but I mean, just for the sake, somebody was asking why are coyotes important for our ecosystems?
Oh yeah, coyotes are super important for the ecosystems because they control rodent populations. A single coyote can eat 1,800 rodents in a year. So imagine how many a pack can eat. That's an incredible free source of rodent control for communities or ranches or whatever. They're amazing at that. So we need to let them do their jobs. But
Nice.
yeah, they're really effective predators, and that helps control things like Lyme disease because they eat a lot of the rodents that carry the tick virus that helps that disease spread. And yeah, they help prevent the spread of diseases. They help even songbird populations by um, when they eat feral cats, that helps songbird populations, as sad as that may be. They keep cats out of places where there's songbirds. Just when feral cats know that coyotes are in that area, they won't even go in those more natural spaces where the coyotes are. So they perform a lot of important jobs that they don't often get credit for.
Nice. And then so somebody mentioned that some states in the US have banned killing contests. They're asking, do you think we could potentially here in California get to that point? So this person mentioned they live in a different state where it seems like the agencies in that state, despite the fact they know the science and the benefit of communities, tend to perhaps cater more towards like hunters or like ranching communities that might implement not so friendly coyote practices. So do you think here in California we might ever get to that point?
Well, in California, we were the first state to ban, thanks to Project Coyote and our allies. We worked very, very hard, and we got California to be the first state to ban coyote killing contests. And now we have many states. And just the years since we've been working on this, I don't even know how many states now, probably 10 or 12 have banned it. And we're working on more every day. We're working hard. And both Project Coyote and our allies, that's a really low hanging fruit we feel that it's just ridiculous that in this day and age in 2026 that there's any states that allow people to go out and just kill native wildlife, as many as they can for no purpose, just to throw them away and award prizes. So we are obviously very, very against wildlife killing contests. They're horrible, horrible. They serve no ecological purpose. But we're being very successful in instituting these bans across the country, and we're hoping to get more. I don't know what state this person's from, and but yeah, well, we feel like we're making a huge difference in that regard. So if they want to email us about that and what state they're in, then maybe we can help. We may have state representatives in that state that can help them with advocacy information about how to approach that issue.
All right, awesome. Yeah, we'll do. Um, And then I believe some people did drop some questions on the chat, so I'll just go over. Somebody asked when they unite, so you were showing that clip of them kind of like reuniting and doing their howls. If they typically reunite near their dens, as this person kind of mentioned that they could kind of hear the cough close to their home, so they're wondering if when
Mm.
when they reunite, it's almost always kind of like at their home base, like at their den.
It is not where they, that's interesting. An interesting fact about their dens is coyotes only use their dens when they're nursing pups. So, and in California, they generally give birth around mid-April.
Oh
So
wow.
from April, yeah, so from mid-April for about 6 to 8 weeks, those pups will be underground. The mom will be nursing them under the ground, and then the father and the siblings bring the food. So when she comes up and the puppies are weaned, they come up and then they just live outside of the den. That's the only time they use their dens. Coyotes don't use them any other time of year. So for like a couple of months a year is the only time they use those dens. And usually a pack will have a couple of alternative dens in case one gets full of fleas or someone spots it and they feel like it's not safe anymore. They'll have some alternatives. But so when they're howling and they're meeting up, they usually do it at a place called a rendezvous site. So once coyotes want to find each other, one will go to the rendezvous site and start howling. It's a place where they all know and they all frequent, and then the rest will meet them there. Just like that
Hmm.
course, it was obviously a rendezvous site for that pack that I showed you in that video.
Uh-huh. I see. Um, and then I think you mentioned this. When do coyotes pup in California, and when would they be like most aggressive for food? Or I guess in this case, like your pets being seen as food. But so it's a two-part. When
Right.
do they
So
pup? And
yeah, so they give birth mid-April. So I would say their highest demand, there's really no statistic time where you're it's more dangerous. But it's just good to know their life cycle so you can anticipate what might be
mm,
behaviors behind why they might be acting certain ways different times a year. So probably the highest demand on food would be when the pups are above ground, when they're no longer nursing, but they still need to feed them. So let's say by the way, they have normally about 6 pups, but half don't make it to the first year. So let's say they have 4 pups with them that survive. Then they've got 4 extra mouths to feed. That would probably be the most highest demand on when they need the most prey, would be, midsummer probably. That doesn't mean
hmm
that necessarily they're going to be more dangerous to small pets, but it's something to keep in mind.
hmm Right. That makes sense. Um, Let me make sure. Uh, Everything can just go off on their own. As a group, we have had a single one in our neighborhood claimed out is looking. So somebody mentioned a very particular instance where um this individual mentioned that they have a single coyote kind of like lingering in their neighborhood, kind of like a greenbelt neighborhood, like a more natural area. Is it potentially looking for mate and food? Or like what would be the reason why it would kind of linger in that area?
Like I said, even though coyotes are pack animals, they spend most of their day apart. So if you see a coyote by itself, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not part of a pack.
Hmm.
It could be a lone coyote, but there's really no way to tell. But when they do leave, when the older siblings do leave to go out on their own, we call it the dispersal season. We say it's usually around fall, but it can happen any time of year. Then you might see them by themselves. If it looks like a young coyote and it's out by it could be one that's dispersing and looking for a mate or, trying to carve out its own territory.
Hmm.
It's really impossible to tell just by looking at them unless you study them so, these particular territory of coyotes so well that you can spot them and know who's who. Otherwise, it's really impossible to tell whether one's with a family or not.
Right, that makes sense. So just for the sake of time, we'll do maybe just two more questions. I think that might be how many are left. Somebody asked about a book recommendation. Does Hope Ryden's book God's Dog have any good information?
Yeah, that's a great book. Really good book. Also, Coyote America is another awesome book. It depends on what kind of knowledge you want to get. The Coyote America has great historical information about coyotes and our how we've treated them in this country and how their whole entire history of how they spread across the America. It's really fascinating. It's a really good book. But there's lots of good. If you go to again on our website, I believe we have a page with a lot of recommendations of some good coyote literature. But those are two great. God's Dog, Hope's book, and also Coyote America are two great places to start.
Nice. And then somebody asked that video with all the happy coyotes that you mentioned. If there's sort of like an estimate, like would you say there's like 10 of them? This person recounted a memory thing, it might have seemed like there were hundreds of coyotes at the time, but like how many could it potentially be like the highest number of coyotes that you would encounter maybe like at one time?
Okay, well, the pack you saw there and how loud they were, that was just four coyotes, just to give you an idea of, how loud, a big pack would sound. But um, generally, and I hear wild stories all the time. People say, I saw, especially ranchers will say, I saw 15 coyotes around my pasture. No, no, you didn't. Um, I think the most I've seen at one time, this doesn't mean it's the most you'll ever see. I'm just saying that I've seen is probably seven. And that's still very, very unusual. Generally, you'll see a pair, a single coyote, or you can see a lot. Now, I'm putting a caveat on this because when a pair has babies, just a litter of pups. Let's say they have six or seven pups, and they're pretty young. Then you might see seven, eight, nine. If they're both the parents, you might see nine together. But we're talking the very small pups. But I haven't seen a lot of coyotes all together at once, any more than say seven. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so another thing to point out is because there are times a year where you could possibly see, let's say, five pups made it to adulthood, which is kind of unusual, but let's just say they made it to teenager stage. And then you have the two parents, and then there's a couple that still haven't dispersed from a prior litter. That would be four, five, six, seven, eight. That would be eight coyotes you might see certain times of year if you happen to see them all together when they're meeting up at a rendezvous spot or something. And then you think sometimes people panic and they think, oh my God, they're overpopulating. Look at all these. But
Right.
all those babies are going to go on their own eventually, and you're going to be back to just the two. So it's not going to be a continual, it's not going to keep growing that population. It's going to get to a point and then they'll disperse.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Well, thank you so much. Do you mind just if I just share my screen and kind of like we can just wrap up with the
Yeah, you want me to hit stop share?
yeah,
Do I
please.
need to do that or can you just do it? Why can't I can't find my cursor. Oh, wait, did I just do it? No, my cursor is, oh, wait, I'm really having problems tonight. I can
Here,
hit
actually,
everything except
I
stop
think
share.
okay, there we go. I think I'm able to there we go.
You did it? Because I still see my slide. Oh, wait, let me just exit. Will that work?
No, no, it's fine. I think I'm back to sharing my
Oh, there we go. I see you now.
yeah,
Okay.
there we go. We got through questions and answers. And then just before we officially sort of just like, end this, I did want to plug in something that's, sort of like related to wildlife that Forest Watch is doing. Earlier this year we launched a brand new community science project, our Room to Roam community science project, in which, participants all throughout the Central Coast can download a free mobile survey and upload observations on roadkill and wildlife throughout the data. Um, roadkill might not seem sort of like that important at first glance, but of course, it's important for Forest Watch to be able to identify hotspots of regional wildlife mortality from vehicles, so that we could, down the line, engage with local planning processes on how to better protect our wildlife. So, if anybody's interested in participating, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen. This QR code just takes you to our website where you'll be able to see more information, watch our short training video on how to get started with the survey and how to upload data. So far, we've had 81 entries for so far from community scientists. Two of those were from deceased coyotes. Again, sort of it just highlights the importance of us being able to protect our landscapes, coexist with coyotes, so that it doesn't drive them to these conditions in which they fall victim to wildlife mortality. And with that being said, I want to thank you all again for joining us. Kelly, do you want to give any last few words while I leave this slide up? If anyone's interested in following Forest Watch or Project Coyote, here's some information on our social media and also ways in which you could support our organizations. Do you want to give any last words, Kelly?
Just don't use rodenticides. If you have rat and rodent problems, let the natural predators do their job. Use sanitation and exclusion. That would be one of the greatest things you could do for wildlife.
Awesome. That's a good way to end it. And with that being said, I will go ahead and then just stop the recording.
Thank you, everybody.